Good night, folks, and welcome to Mindful Live 500 and what are we on now? 25? 525? I want to hear the budget. Yes, me too, Antoinette, me too. That's going to be very, very interesting to see how it all goes. Extremely interesting because I think the current administration, 524, I feel that's wrong. I think like the current administration would be in a particularly difficult position because they lobbied on making things better for the country, and a lot of the yes, we are 524. No, we are not. Yes, we are 524. Yes, and the promises they made, almost all of those promises will cost money. And many of the money-making measures that the last administration, the schemes that the last administration had in mind, many of them were lambasted and thrown out by the present administration. They said they weren't good, and as a citizen of the country, I'm not upset about that. I had no interest in wanting to pay property taxes. I did not want the electricity rates to increase and all of those things. I'm glad for that, but at the same time, I teach maths. I may not be the specific math springer, but I'm also a math teacher and mostly other subjects. And the mathematics seems a bit strenuous. Okay, truth teller, the mathematics seems a bit strenuous. How are we going to collect less money and at the same time spend more? The mathematics for that seems a bit difficult. So once you're on the inside, hit that like button, double tap the screen out there on TikTok. If you are looking at this live on YouTube, hit that like button too. If you are looking at it on repeat on YouTube, still hit the like button. Drop a subscribe if you are not yet subscribed. Share this to someone who might like this kind of content, who likes to keep up with Trini news, even someone from an expatriate. They're like, hey, I want to know what's going on in Trinidad. Well, look at this guy. He talks about exactly that. So we'll find out. I'm not excited for that budget. Otis says borrow. Hey, night, ting. Otis says borrow. Borrow might be a big problem because we're going to talk about some of that tonight. We're starting off in the economy tonight, talking economics, and borrowing may be coming up to be more and more of a problem. So I'm not even sure if borrowing is going to be a practical option. Well, I'm nearly sure that some borrowing is going to occur, but how much are we going to borrow? How much are we going to borrow? And to a large extent, what are we going to borrow for? If we borrow ourselves into further debt just to pay for laptops for school, or to pay for other goodies from the government, other goodie exchanges from the government where they give some goodies to the population. As a member of the population, I don't mind the goodies. I like goodies too. But are we going to borrow for goodies? Are we going to borrow to pay a 16% increase in salaries for the public service? Because remember, the discussion is starting at what, 10%? Okay. Are we going to borrow to pay? Are we going to borrow to pay salaries? Are you planning your escape or staying here? I have no interest in leaving Trinidad and Tobago, at least not yet. At the same time, I have no interest in fighting for anyone's folly and foolishness. So, yeah. But no. I like my Trinidad. Trinidad is a nice place. I love my Trinidad. And relatively speaking, we are in a pretty good place comparative to most other places in the world. Trinidad has a lot of difficulties and challenges, but comparatively, there aren't all that many better places to live, in my humble opinion. Where would you say is a better place? That's what I'd ask. All right, let's jump into some of these stories. Hawaii. Government makes exchange rate decisions, not the central bank. One of the most sensitive and frequently debated topics in TNT's economic discourse is the official exchange rate of the TNT dollar against the US dollar. Central Bank of TNT has long maintained a stable rate, with the selling rate ranging from $6.77 and $6.79 to US $1. And that one sentence there is the catalyst for many of the problems we're going to discuss tonight. The central bank has long maintained a stable rate. Maintained a stable rate. Not that the rate is stable. The central bank is artificially maintaining a stable rate. However, this de facto fixed rate has faced increased scrutiny from economists, business leaders, and the public. A key aspect of the debate revolves around the central bank's role in managing this rate versus its legal mandate. On Thursday, at his first media engagement since assuming office 2 months ago, Central Bank Governor addressed the pressing question of whether he was committed to maintaining the current exchange rate. He clarified that this decision falls outside of the central bank's mandate, as it is a policymaker's decision made by elected government officials. The central bank's role, the governor explained, is to provide the government with the data and analysis required to make an informed choice. He added that this includes conducting detailed computations on the potential effects of any change on economic factors such as inflation. And here's the thing, This is where a lot of debate on how democracies should function comes in. This kind of idea put some debate there on how democracies function. Probably you do, Tian. Tell the farmers they only building apart. We have to decrease. That's a topic to come in there. Morning, Nisi. How should we run technical aspects of our country? The economy, very technical. There are people that go to school for a very long time to study this. Now, my opinion of many economists is that I feel like all of them are guessing. Like when it comes to planning and predicting, I feel like they're all guessing kind of way. That's the way it goes. Lots of economists, their expertise is questionable in my opinion. It's very questionable. And I find if you're a skillful economist, you're supposed to be Warren Buffett. If Warren Buffett comes to tell me about economics, I could say, all right, you have a track record of doing pretty good. That could make sense. But if all you do, you're a big economist, and all you do is teach in university, that's all you've done for your whole life. You know this, and I'm a teacher, so I'm not insulting teachers without throwing some shade at myself also. But you know, they say who cannot do teach. So if all you've done is teach, why haven't you put your economic expertise to making some money in this economy? Show us how much you understand this economy by making some money otherwise than just getting students to listen to you. But I'm sorry, that's my belief on many economists. But the discussion here is, should we allow the central bank and their experts to set an exchange rate, or should we allow politicians and their political motivations and motives to be the ones that control this? And I understand both sides of this argument, because the argument might be that experts know what to do. So leave it to the experts. Let the experts control their expertise. However, experts are generally unelected. No one elects the people that work at the central bank. So, would you want unelected experts to control your country? You would swiftly see that your country is no longer a democracy. This is kind of where populist revolutions come from. When people look and they find that power is being accumulated by the few experts and the few in the know, the few in the inner circles, and they see that there's no room for change in voting. But they already do that to some extent. But for example, the fact that a government could change and go in there and fire the whole central bank and decide to float the TT dollar if they want, I think that's a good thing. Yes, it's a very dangerous thing. As in, a political decision could crash the whole ship. But I think that's the basis of democracy, being ruled by basically popular mandate. I do not want an expert to decide what's right, because the experts can't tell men from women. I think decisions like this need to be objective. Ask someone who has no personal stake. But Theon, where do you find that person with no personal stake? I think America, the Federal Reserve person is elected for like 15 years. I'm not sure. Because I believe the last Federal Reserve governor was put in by Biden, and he is set to leave next year, I believe. So, I don't think that's 15 years. And Trump is looking to fire. No, the one he's looking to fire was put in by Biden, I believe. The black woman with allegations of mortgage fraud and all of that. So, he's looking to be fired. Or he wants to fire them. And to me, I kind of like some of that. Now, I don't think you want it to be flip-flopping every time a government changes. But I want it that if I vote for a group of people, I want them to be able to actually do something different. I want them to actually be able to make a change. I don't want it to be that if I wanted the TT dollar floated. Imagine if the general public wanted the dollar floated, and a group of 5 experts say we are not doing it. No. You didn't. No, you have been covering that all along. Most of the lives over the last week was basically about Venezuela. Go up on my YouTube. Nathan Springer on YouTube. If any of you ever miss a live, Nathan Springer over on YouTube, and you can catch any of them. That is how a nation becomes stagnant. Nothing can be cumulative, because every election is changing. Well, then, do you want a dictatorship? That way we never have a change. Better yet, have a monarchy. That way, even when the monarch dies, his family takes over, and even less of a change happens. We get no change. We get real stability through the eons, as we are servants, as we are what they call, not citizens, subjects of the king. Singapore did well with their dictatorship. Theirs wasn't technically a dictatorship because he was voted in. he was voted in. And the thing is, he, the one who was voted in, was given the power to make the decisions. So then it's nearly as though the power was back with the people. Imagine if we vote in someone who we like to run the thing, and when he gets in there and wants to make the changes that we want to be made, some group, some panel of experts tells him, nah, we can't do that. We are too divided of a people for that type of governance. What type of governance you mean? Personally, I prefer lean more to the power with the people. I don't trust the experts. I really don't. I would like the experts to be under the politicians. The experts must be under the elected officials. You carry your expertise to the person we can select to lead us, and that person would decide if we want to go with what you see. I also don't trust the people if we're being real. I am the people. I am the people. We don't always know what's best. Of course we don't. But neither do the experts. And I would much prefer my life in my hands. If you want to live under the control of some experts, good on you. I would prefer not to. I would prefer not to. I don't want an expert to tell me how I should live and how my country should function. I don't mind them telling me. I don't want them to be able to enforce it. What I want is you put this suggestion out there. Experts write opinion editorials. Write 1 billion of those. Change the mind of the people through your expertise. Show us your expertise. Discuss it on an op-ed in the Express. Let us read it and notice, hey, all right. But I don't want you who are unelected to decide what happens. No thanks. We saw that in COVID. No thanks. No thanks. And you see, the problem with the experts is that no one person is smart enough. What the aim of democracy and engagement from the wider public intends to do to some extent is it crowdsources knowledge and decisions. No one expert would be wiser necessarily than the group. I've never said myself wrong, and I'm no expert. However, I've seen so-called experts crash. I've seen many experts crash. Many experts. I've seen fat doctors, experts. You're an expert in health and you're fat, and I would want you to control me? Expert. How you're an expert and you're fat in that area? Broke economists on the picket line in UE begging for a raise. If you understand the economy so much, show us. No, I don't. Show us. But no, you would come and tell me I am an expert, follow me, and I'm just, no thanks, no thanks. Allow us to vote for the people we want. And here's the thing, here's the beautiful thing about this whole voting and choosing. We could choose an expert. Nathan, what is the purpose of having a central bank and a treasury? Control. I would have thought you knew that, Abdul. Or are you just asking answers here? It's control. Now, control can offer stability also. Because, in a sense, that's what governments are about too. Control. And control tends to offer stability. So, central banks, through their control, can offer stability. Can offer stability. But It's achieved through control. And that's a lot of control to control an economy. It's a lot of control to control an economy. The challenge today is managing the shortage with a lower level of reserves. The core of the problem, how I reiterated, is a fundamental disequilibrium between demand and supply. With demand far exceeding supply, the system cannot satisfy everyone's needs. We demand basically $6 billion US per year, and we basically supply $4 billion US per year. That's the main crux of the problem, according to the central bank. Main crux of the problem. We spend more foreign exchange than we earn. How do we fix that? That's kind of the question that a lot of this is about. A lot of the talk, a lot of the discussion is about that. How do we fix that? Solutions. The long-term solution, according to the governor, lies in a fundamental change in the country's economic structure and individual behavior. You see, we could have afforded to have a wide and big appetite for Forex when we were producing a lot through oil and gas. Are local goods cheaper than imported goods? If not, how do we fix that? Hi! You know one way to fix that? Float the currency. That will make it much more expensive to import the goods, and then local goods generally would be comparatively cheaper. But that doesn't necessarily make local goods cheaper in terms of decreasing the dollar amount for local goods. That very likely would just make foreign goods more expensive, and the local goods retain the same prices they had. And if the local good relies on a foreign import, so if you're importing fertilizers and chemicals to use, then your input prices would go up. So even the local goods, the more foreign inputs you need in producing this local good, it would also have an effect on that. Cutting on foreign imports seemed the best option, Otis says. Yeah, maybe, but how do we do that? But yes, it will, Abdul. Yes, it will. How do we cut back foreign imports? How would you think we should do that? With the decline of the traditional oil and gas sector, the governor underscored the need for more citizens and residents of TNT to become foreign exchange earners. He cited the potential for podcast and content creation as a modern way for individuals to generate foreign exchange. So you all go subscribe and look at my YouTube videos some more. Hopefully YouTube starts paying me and I can earn some Forex for the country. We can't even monetize content like that. No, it's not that easy in Trinidad and Tobago. It really is not. It really is not. Imbert to UNC supporters, because inside of this media speech that how I made here, he also said that there is no Forex cartel. Imbert to UNC supporters after Hawaii says no Forex cartel exists. Why the silence? Oh Shazam. Former Finance Minister Colm Imbert has questioned why UNC supporters have gone quiet after Central Bank Governor Larry Hawaii dismissed long-standing claims of a foreign exchange cartel in TNT. In a post on X Saturday, Imbert wrote, "For 10 years, the opposition insisted that there was a forex cartel in TNT. Now that the new UNC CBTT governor has confirmed that there is no such cartel and that credit card usage has increased by 400%, thus creating a demand and supply problem, the UNC trolls are oddly silent. Why? Imbert's remarks followed Hawaii's media engagement on Thursday, where he said that while rejecting the notion of collusion between financial institutions, Hawaii acknowledged ongoing challenges in the system. On May 15, Prime Minister Kamala Persad confirmed that Cabinet had mandated the Ministers of Finance, Trade and Investment, Tourism, Planning and Development to compile a report on forex distribution and leakages over the past decade. She said the report will identify the largest users of foreign exchange, facilitators of its distribution, and businesses allegedly benefiting from unfair or opaque practices. Persad has repeatedly suggested that a forex cartel distorted access to foreign currency during previous administrations. She cited the dismissal of then Central Bank Governor Jawala Ramran in 2015 after he revealed the names of the top users of foreign exchange as an example of efforts to suppress transparency. The UNC has also raised its concerns at international forums, including meetings with the IMF, calling forex access one of the country's most pressing economic challenges. Imbert, however, has insisted he has consistently defended the former PNM administration. As finance minister, he argued that government policy prioritized stabilization, inflation control, and protection of vulnerable households. He resisted calls to float the TNT dollar, warning that devaluation would increase the cost of living, making imports more expensive and would not generate additional US dollars. He also noted that the IMF had recommended greater flexibility in the exchange rate since 2012, but stressed that the UNC had rejected similar proposals while in office. Neither party wanted to impose hardship on citizens by devaluing the currency, Imbert said. Yeah, Antoinette Grappi, look Nathan Springer on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. All of these are there. So, according to the new central bank governor, there was no cartel. Swarat Singh challenges central bank governor's no forex cartel claim. He may not have all the info now. Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development has challenged central bank governor's assertion that there is no evidence of a foreign exchange cartel, saying the lack of proof does not guarantee one does not exist. Convenient, a very convenient statement to see. We have no proof, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Which is actually true, I don't deny the truth of that. Now to the main part. An article written by Emil Elias. Emil Elias is the chairman and owner, I believe, of NH International, one of the country's largest contracting companies. They build a lot of buildings. In Trinidad and throughout the Caribbean, they build a lot of buildings. So keep that in mind as we read this article written by Mr. Emil Elias. His company is a large contracting company doing business outside of Trinidad also. He wrote, Colm Imbert will be remembered as the worst Minister of Finance in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, but he did not act alone. For 10 years, every reckless decision he made with respect to our exchange rate was endorsed, defended, and enabled by former Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. Rowley inexplicably kept him in the critical position of Minister of Finance office for almost 10 years and allowed Imbert to preside over the most destructive decade of economic management this country has ever endured. This resulted in a wrecked economy, vanishing foreign reserves, and a nation brought to its financial knees. Imbert's central blunder was abandoning the managed float system administered by the central bank that had served this country very well. A managed float would have allowed the TT dollar to decline gradually, cushioning the inflation, preserving our foreign exchange reserves, and sustaining our role as the financial powerhouse of the Caribbean. Emil Elias Mr. Emil Elias, NH International boss. Whatever happened to his court case? You all remember he had a very salacious accusation and matter before the court. I wonder what happened to that. Anyway, who knows. But the managed float topic. Abdul, but everybody allowed an opinion, and charges aren't convictions. A man is innocent until proven guilty. Won't devaluation at this time cause prices to increase as a lot of materials are imported? Yes, they most certainly will. But yeah, the topic of changing the managed float, I maybe agree with this, because now we're talking about floating the dollar and going straight, as he would say later on in this article, going straight to $9, 9 to 1. That's a shock on the system. But if what he is saying here is true, and the managed float was changed by Mr. Imbert, and if it was kept, what it would have allowed is we slowly drift up to where we are supposed to be. Then I could agree with that. I can agree with that. Instead, his article goes on, instead, Imbert locked us into a de facto fixed exchange rate with a ceiling. For a decade, he made the CBTC sell foreign exchange cheaply, squandering our national wealth while trying to maintain a false illusion of stability. Now, that's what happens when you fix the rate. Basically, what the central bank is doing is selling US dollars cheaper than they are worth in the local market. Well, then blame needs to go back to 2012 when it was first recommended. According to what Mr. Elias is saying, is that there was a change on the managed float policy starting from Mr. Imbert. Not just since 2012 when it was recommended a more clear float, but if it is true that the managed float, which would have, yes, managed it and not allow it to just zoom up to whichever number, but would have allowed incremental increases in the right direction, if that was changed by Mr. Imbert, I think that is a good and solid criticism to give. Correct you, I agree. I 100% agree with that. Because what you are effectively doing is selling US dollars for cheaper than it's worth. And if we have supply demand, but we add cost in there, if we had a relatively even supply and demand going, but then we basically pin the cost to lower than it actually is, aren't we of course going to force the demand to go up? The demand would of course increase because the thing is cheaper, is being sold for cheaper than it's actually worth. So then the demand to supply problem would be an obvious offshoot of that. Did they not see this with the introduction of price mat onto the market? I suppose not. But who owns price mat in Trinidad? And the expansion of Massey Conglomerate? Who are the largest shareholders of Massey Conglomerate? Who owns price mat? That's a question to ask, eh? I know NIB is the largest, but after NIB, after government in Massey, after government inside of Massey, who? Yes, Otis, the government is the biggest shareholder in Massey. Ha! You, Ronnie? Yeah. Look for the general manager of PriceMart. Look for the shareholders. Look for who controls the Endeavor Holdings Limited, where PriceMart is located. Look at those kinds of things. Who owns Endeavor Holdings Limited? Did that person once have a job in any administration of governance? Anyway, you all would have to look up those things all on your own. But yes, those are real issues. We have some massive snakes sitting on our forex distribution, sucking it dry. But obviously they are partially doing that with the demand of the public. The public is buying the goods that they are importing, so you could probably blame some on the public. But as I've noted, the public would buy from them because that's what is available. If you were to split up PriceMart's forex demand into 500 different smaller businesses, the public would have very likely still spent the same amount of money shopping at the different areas. It's just now it's concentrated much more. And if you are selling US dollars for cheaper than they are worth, and the people that are able to buy the most of them are the wealthy, who gets the maximum benefit out of that? Yes, poorer people can still afford to buy US dollars and do things with US dollars. But who would get the maximum benefit? Those who buy the most of the cheap commodity, being US dollars, right? The consequences have been catastrophic. Our reserves, US $11.45 billion in 2014, have now collapsed to perilous lows. This piece allows me to know that the writer here isn't being totally fair. Because if you wanted to speak about Imbert's effect on our financial situation, why would you start from 2014 when Imbert and they came in 2015? You all want to know why? Because the reserves dropped between 2014 to 2015. That 11.45 billion in reserves in 2014 already dropped to something like 9 billion by 2015. Because that's when the oil prices faced their crunch. So even before the partnership left, the reserves were already on a sharp downward trend. So it doesn't seem very honest if you're trying to give a clear picture of the effect this man had on the economy, to attempt to hide the fact that the reserves began dropping precipitously a year before they entered. You could highlight that fact and still say that he made it worse. But when you ignore that, it makes me frown. it makes me wonder that it could nearly seem like this is more narrative building. You're aiming at nearly like a takedown article more than just providing us with the information you believe. And I am very certain he would know that the reserves dropped in 2015. Why would you list from 2014? A very suspect thing to do. History offers a clear example of what real leadership looks like. In April 1993, former late Prime Minister Patrick Manning and his then Finance Minister Wendell Motley, along with the CBTT, bit the bullet and freed the currency, at the same time moving it from $4.25 to US $1 to $5.75. To put this into perspective, it cost 35% more TT dollars to buy US $1 after this was done. Today, a similar policy decision would bring us to circa 9 to 1. There's a fair point. It was done before. Now, granted, the economy we have now is not the economy we had in 1993. That bold and historic step in April 1993, after decades of controls, restored faith in our economic future, attracted investment, and rebuilt reserves year after year for about 22 years. As Lloyd Best told me in 1985, the correct exchange rate is 10 to 1, and if implemented, it will unleash the productive forces of the country. That wisdom is as urgent now as it was then. Madam Prime Minister, the choice before you is stark. Do we act now by taking the difficult but necessary steps to correct 10 years of exchange rate mismanagement, or do we sit back and wait for the IMF to dictate our future in 2 years' time? Delay is the path of ruin. Yes, adjustment will be painful, but it can and must be managed with fairness and compassion. The genuine poor must be protected, while those who can afford it should shoulder more. The path forward is clear. Here are some suggestions for your consideration. A $300 million targeted food stamp program for genuinely poor families, limited strictly to essential items. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Decreasing help for the labeled poor. Adjustments to electricity rates, sparing low-use households while requiring the middle and upper classes to pay more. So increase the electricity bills while suddenly making that change to the exchange rate is his recommendation. Bear in mind, for someone like him, an increase in electricity rates will be irrelevant. It may be very likely all of his electricity rates may come out of some tax deductible something, because that's what most large businesses do. So he has no effect. There's no effect on him for electricity rates. Next is other recommendation. Millionaire says tax the rich. I disagree with that 100% in the notion of it, because the notion is an envious notion. The idea of tax the rich is we want what the rich have to a large extent. I'm not in agreement with that. I'm not in agreement with that at all. I say if you believe taxes are required to run a nation, then tax everyone in the nation. People shouldn't be punished for acquiring more. I don't think that's a sensible thing. Robin Hood style. Robin Hood stole. Listen. Robin Hood stole from the government. Robin Hood stole taxes from the government. Robin Hood didn't take from the rich to give to the poor. That's the narrative that Those greedy, envious, dirty communists. That's their narrative they like to put on it. That wasn't what he was doing. He was stealing taxes from the government. That's the parallel of what Robin Hood was doing. The government was overtaxing the people, and he was stealing the taxes and giving it back. The really rich don't pay taxes, their books say it, but it's not tangible. That's not true, millionaire. That's not true. If you're actually a millionaire, you would know that. The rich pay most of the taxes just about anywhere in the world. They also avoid a lot of taxes, yes, but they still pay the lion's share of the taxes. Listen, vast majority of people in the lower income area in Trinidad pay no salary taxes. That's just the reality. Their salaries aren't enough to pay salary taxes. They pay value-added tax on some goods. I may surmise that the vast majority of citizens of Trinidad are a net negative on our economy, or at least on our government budget. Let me just say on our economy, on our government budget. They're a net negative. They take more than they give. And it doesn't really make sense to me that the solution you have for that is to take from the people who already give more than they take and give more to the people that already take more than they give. And I understand it could sound callous, but it's reality. The reality of getting less for less effort, for putting less into the system, is in itself a motivation to put more into the system. It's like, y'all ever hear about some of those restaurants that try to change their tipping system, where all the tips go into one general fund, and then from that we all share it equally? I hate that idea. If I find out, pool, yes, one general pool. If I find out I'm in a restaurant and they want to pool the tips, and my server did a good job, I am calling my server and giving them some my tip cash, and no tip goes towards the pool. I don't care about you all other servers. They didn't serve me. They didn't give me anything extra. I am not impressed by their service. I have no interest in paying for it. I think if someone goes above and beyond and puts more effort in, they should get more reward out. But no. The idea of tax the rich is if you work in a restaurant and someone is friendly with customers, they bend over backward proverbially for the customers. They back and front, you change your order. No problem, that's no problem. I'll get it for you. You spill and they come rushing and they mop everything and they clean everything. And because of that, on a night, like, I have some friends that worked in the earlies at Hyatt when Hyatt recently opened, and with the expat visitors, those that come to Trinidad to do some work and even on holidays and stuff, some of the tips went crazy. But some of the people went above and beyond. You were friendly to this family for their whole stay. So when they're leaving, they give you $300 US in your hand. And if one server keeps getting on a given night $500 US as tips, and another server doesn't get a cent because they're hoggish, the idea of tax the rich is that the server who keeps getting the $500 US tips every night should give that, at least some of that, to the hoggish server getting none. Huh? And you think that's a better idea? I don't like that idea. I'm sorry, I don't. Going on with Mr. Elias's recommendations though. Going on with Mr. Elias's recommendations. An immediate increase in the minimum wage to $26 per hour, with further increases over the next 2 years with a target of $30 per hour, lifting thousands of workers out of poverty, no matter the crocodile tears of wealthy business owners living in luxury while paying very low wages. Yeah, he crazy. Yeah. He really crazy. But here's the thing. He is in the construction industry. Nearly no one in the construction industry makes less than $30 per hour. He is very much aware, I believe he's very much aware, this is not going to have an effect on him. All that is going to do is raise the minimum wage to the level where he is now paying minimum wage. And if we follow generally what happens to a lot of minimum wage raises in modern times, all that happens is inflation raises to match it. So what he would effectively do is lower the pay of his workers. I think we need to remove the number from minimum wage. Remove the number. Minimum wage is X. You could put the number as anything, it's X. And what we have realized in Trinidad, X is equal to the price of Kiss' most expensive sandwich loaf. Y'all never realize that? Kiss' most expensive sandwich loaf raises to the price of minimum wage. It keeps going. As minimum wage raises, Kiss sandwich loaf follows soon after. The most expensive one, their premium sandwich loaf. So if you raise as it is, if you leave it as it is, the lowest paid employee of a contractor like this one would, let's say, be able to afford a bread and a half per hour. X and a half per hour. And now, what you do is you equalize the lowest paid in construction to X. So now, lowest paid in construction is no longer X plus 0.5. It's X. What you have actually done is decreased your lowest paid worker to the price of one Kiss sandwich loaf. But Nathan, construction workers won't work for minimum wage. That is madness. That's what you think. What he's aiming for there is a change of the economy. That will make a lot of things much harder. If you have a sudden increase to $9 and you're working in a restaurant where everything on the menu is imported, some restaurants will have to close. Where do the restaurant workers go? I'm pretty certain he would be calling in something like this for CPEP and URP to be no more. Where do those workers go? That's a whole different type of hard work. Listen, I do contracting also. I highly doubt it, Abdul. I highly doubt it. I'm in construction also, much smaller contracting. Hey, I need some workers, boy. Speaking of, I know some reliable workers in Central. Tell them, send me a message. We need some workers out here. It's always a struggle to find good workers. So tell them, shoot me a message on the contracting side. But yeah. And when Venezuela went to hell, proverbially, we had bank workers from Venezuela crossing in pirogues to come and mix concrete in Trinidad and Tobago. Trump just said the tech companies can no longer hire Indians, make Trinidad the new little India. Why would they do that? If you're offering a permanent job, then I'm coming from South for that. Ronnie, no thanks. I don't know a woman on my job site. I sexist like that. I hire men alone. Women on construction job site, that is bacchanal. Trouble. With a capital T. Massive, massive, massive trouble. Massive trouble, massive trouble. I don't want that. No. I'm sexist about that. Yeah. No woman allowed. I carrying you court. Try. Feel free. Fix up. But yeah, if you make a much more desperate market, she going with somebody for, but facts, Abdul. Listen. If you hear some of these stories about women on a construction style job site, things could get bacchanalish. Let's just put it that way. Let's look at a response. Will devaluation of the TT dollar work? Economists reject Elias's call for devaluation. Here are responses from two economists to the suggestion in Indira Sajiwan. A devaluation may appear at first glance as a fix for the current forex shortage the country is experiencing. But once you drill down, it comes crashing in. Yes, a devaluation will make the cost of US dollars more expensive and therefore reduce the demand. But it will hit those who can't afford. Individual households and medium and small and micro enterprises really hard. They will be the main casualties. Parents needing forex for kids studying abroad, persons needing medical care abroad, and of course the lower middle income vacationers will have to downsize or forego that planned trip. Micro and small business will face increasing costs, become less competitive, and face closure. Here's the thing though. With her point. I agree with some of her point and disagree with some of her point. Very funny, Rani. I agree and disagree with some of her point. Yes, I don't want to hit kids studying abroad. I don't want to hit persons needing medical care abroad. But I think the lower middle income vacationers, I don't think it's our job as a country to subsidize their foreign vacation. Because really and truly, what selling forex at a cheaper rate does is basically the country is subsidizing the sale of US dollars to Trinidadians. So everyone who buys US dollars, think of it as we are all giving them a little bit of a subsidy. So I think what we need to ask ourselves there is, what should we subsidize? Let this small man enjoy a little something now if he could afford it. If he could actually afford it, then I have no problem. Go on a global world tour, jump around the whole world. But all these single millennial women who only go in country hopping. Listen, millennial women could spend money like drug dealers out here. All these single millennial women that the travel bug bite, and you want to visit every country in the world. You are what's that? What they call that feeling to drift all about the place? Wanderlust. The wanderlust hit you strong. I don't think it's our job to subsidize that. Pay the actual price for your trip. it's time for CARICOM to join BRICS. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. How would that help? How do you propose that is going to help? How do you suppose that is going to help? What is that going to do? Is it going to decrease the demand for US dollars in Trinidad, or is it going to increase the supply for US dollars in Trinidad? Because one out of those things needs to happen. We be paying because the bank giving $240 a trip. Good. Yeah. I don't think that's something that should be subsidized. But to summarize some of the suggestions by the economists here, a lot of their suggestions basically focused around changing what we import. But part of the problem with that is you're putting the government in control of what people can have. If the government says, well, we have cassava home, so we don't need to buy foreign food. We have cassava home, so we are not allowing imports of foreign cereals. If the government demands that through import sanctions, through controlling of imports, you can only import X and you can only import Y. Would you want that? And here's the thing to consider in that. When a government decides who can only import what, the government is selecting the winner and losers in the economy. The government is selecting the winners and losers. I can't remember, you know. To be honest, some of those prices I don't watch that much, you know. You just kind of pick it like on that 100. Sometimes the price just kind of feeds through my eye. Yes, at the cash register, and you're like, boop, 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 boop. Paying with card is a con. That Shazam, that's not bowling, sir. No, it's not because you're bowling. It's not because you're bowling. Paying with a card is a con. Listen, if that grocery bill hit at $3,200 and you have to pull out $3,200 bills out of your pocket and count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That would feel way different. You see, and even as they change it, the tap, like just taking a little piece of plastic and doing it, you don't feel the gravity of the situation that is befalling you at that moment. Yeah, like boop, and a month of some people's salary gone. Just like that. Magic. Nah, man. I feel like sometimes when you want to control the spending, you don't feel it until you see the email or until you pull up the app and you refresh. you refresh account balance. You watch your account balance and then you pull down the screen and give it a little refresh and you see it change before your eyes and you're like, whoo. Woo. Ronnie says don't watch it. Ronnie, you living dangerous out here. You know what's a nightmare of mine? A nightmare of mine is you tap that card, you put in your PIN, and they say rejected. And then you tap it again, re-put in the PIN, and they say rejected. And you're looking to put back stuff from the counter. I remember I carried out one of the millennial girls and ended up buying a Starbucks cup for $250 for the last day. Never me again. Hey, you good boy. You real good. Right, you say, yeah, my top and get insufficient funds one day. You live that dangerous life, Ronnie. I'm good. I'm not living that dangerous life. I have two daughters who are going to be watching me like, Daddy, you have to put back the groceries, Daddy. Listen, a man pride could only take so much of a hit. Shazam say pride make me go through with the patient. Shazam, I feel I was blanking her, you know. 250 steep for a cup. And then she go on in the girls chat and say, and you know what he buy for me? So a construction worker can't eat steak no more after this administration. No. Steak dead. No more of that. And but yes, would you prefer the government control imports? Would you prefer the government say that we can't import foreign cereal anymore? She resave him in the phone book as cup guy. Would you prefer the government limits flour imports, limit snack imports, limit all imports basically to control it? Because that's the other solution that's put up there. Let's run through the foreign affairs as it stands quickly here. The foreign affairs issues with the US as they stand. US and Venezuela and Trinidad. US military presence in the Caribbean, regional ministers hoping for a meeting with Trump regime. The CARICOM leaders, well, at least the foreign ministers, have sent a document. Tough. They have sent a document over to the United States seeking an audience. They want to meet with the Trump administration so that they can talk about the US in the region. That's what they want to do. However, they haven't gotten a response yet. No response has yet been forthcoming. They're still waiting on it. However, Tanticams don't get response and talk. U.S. reaffirms ties with TNT as Maduro deploys more troops in Venezuela's coast. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau spoke with Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar today to reaffirm the strength of its partnership with the country and acknowledge the government's support for U.S. operations in the Caribbean. While CARICOM foreign ministers are waiting on a response from their letter, our Prime Minister is receiving personal phone calls from the Deputy Secretary of State, of all people, might I add. All that reaffirms ties Trinidad and Tobago still not on the visa waiver list. That ain't happening. Not under Trump. That one isn't happening under Trump at all. So it seems like we are now in a more privileged position than the general CARICOM. And I believe, to some extent, the Trump administration has been attempting, not just in Trinidad, but in various places around the world, to pry open economic groups. Because the truth is, many economic groups were created to battle the US. That's why many economic groups were created, like the European Union, for example. And when you make decisions in concert, you can make decisions then that would actually affect the United States. So if they can divide and conquer, better yet for them. And I wonder if this is some of what's going on even in CARICOM here. A bit of division. I'm seeing also Tobago fishermen are demanding a teacher response after the US strike. They're upset. That the Chief Secretary, Mr. Farley Augustine, has been silent on the US strike, but I don't know what you want the man to say. Mr. Farley Augustine is in a technical position when it comes to this. If Venezuela, Guyana, and Trinidad applied to join BRICS, Trump will launch a nuke. Yeah. If Venezuela, Guyana, and Trinidad applied to join BRICS, we would all be joint narco traffickers. We would become joint narco traffickers. We would discover that the three countries have been working in concert to export narcotics to the United States. And the truth is, that is true. That is true. All three of our countries, I am certain, have exported narcotics to the United States. But should we join BRICS, it would become a very big problem all of a sudden. All of a sudden, it would become an inextricable issue, an issue that must be handled with expedience. But listen, the flotilla out in the Caribbean Sea is a threat directly to Venezuela. But in a sense, it's a latent threat to all the Caribbean to some extent, you know. That's basically telling us that we are all under direct US military control. If America wanted, they could have positioned their military all through and take it all over. That's kinda what is being said in that also. That's why many of the Caribbean countries aren't taking this very lightly. Having warships in your vicinity is a very serious thing. But the thing with Mr. Farley is Mr. Farley speaks much more left-wing. Mr. Farley recognized the plight of the Palestinians and called it genocide. You all remember that? The thing is, I don't actually believe that Mr. Farley is 100% in that camp necessarily. I think he's doing what's expedient. But if you lean leftward, and I mean global leftward, the global left is who you find camaraderie with. How are you then going to praise an American strike? But then, how would you criticize it if you are depending on Tanti-Cams to keep up whatever bargain you all made, may have or may not have made? How are you going to defend it then? How are you going to oppose it? We'd hear what he has to say after we hear what the budget is going to be, I think. Then we'd hear what he has to say. Then we will hear what he has to say. It's crazy, me Amatli, the Globe. Sir. What you trying to get me to read this hour of the day? Trying to get a guy in trouble. Trying to get a guy in trouble. Antigua PM don't seem to like this new administration. I think many Caribbean countries don't like this new administration. Remember, Mrs. Prasad Bisessa's last stint is where she was known for saying Trinidad is not the Caribbean's ATM. You all remember that statement? I'm pretty certain the other members of CARICOM will remember that also. So, bad blood, I'm pretty sure there's bad blood there. I want to hear what Ralph have to say in that meeting. Listen, Ralph is a master dancer. I don't think you're going to get any kind of weirdness out of Ralph. Ralph knows how to dance. Ralph has been there for a long time. He knows how to do the two-step shuffle really well. He knows how to do that two-step shuffle really well. She's not ready to speak on it as yet. What's that you asked about there? It's great. She did say some stuff, you know, but she said it kind of in a more incognito way, I believe. But as I said, no one wants to be too much of an aggressor with a US flotilla out at sea. Like, I hear people talking about they can't and what we could do and what they can't do and what they could do. The Jamaican Gleaner had an op-ed lambasting our Prime Minister for her support and talking about the rule of law and we need to follow the rule of law. But who cares? Really, who cares? The rule of law and the rule of law. Anytime I hear talk from Jamaica, I would always point to them that the Maroons want their own country in the middle of Jamaica and Jamaica refuses it. What about their human rights and their own rights? What's with their rights? Their legal and human rights. Like, people don't care about those things. People want what works for them. People want what works for them. The law isn't as sacred to everyone as the experts would have you believe. Many people don't care. If someone hurts your family and then someone else breaks the law to get back, the vast majority of people do not care. You all know the little clip from Stephen A, where he's like, quite frankly, we don't care. That's just the reality. Many people don't care. Rule of law and due process. No, they don't care. We don't care. That's not what you appeal to. Appealing to the rule of law like it's some sacred code to everyone. They don't care. All right, folks. That's all I have for now. Thank you for joining. It's been a while since I crossed 12 o'clock, boy. It's been a while. All right, I'm out. Thank you for joining. Be sure to hit that like button wherever you look at this. A new term is open. Anybody, if you know someone looking for classes, we are doing Form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have primary school math, primary school writing, primary school grammar. We have early childhood classes also available. We have pod classes where you join a small group and a homeschool geared styled class with other students that you can become familiar with. If you know anyone interested, hit me up, hit us up. Mindful Education, do sign up. We do have some open spots and those spots do disappear as the term proceeds. Be mindful, not mindless. Want some classes? Head over to Mindful Education. And until next time, people, hold it down, stay good, stay well, stay inside, outside sketchy. Marry somebody, child, and give us some good Trini babies out there. We need some more. We dwindling out here. We dwindling.